All right, you've heard me, folks, over the years talking about election integrity. We were at the forefront of stopping the Secretary of State from buying millions and millions of dollars of new Dominion machines. Been calling for the voter rolls to be cleaned up and going to be working on an effort, hopefully in this next legislative session, to pursue that. And our next guest is someone who has really made this his life's mission here over the past few years. He grew up in Baton Rouge, earned a BS in industrial management and a PhD in marketing from LSU. He's got 30 years of leadership experience professionally. He was professor of marketing for over a decade. He's got academic research involving consumer protection, corporate fraud. He's retired now, but still works with his daughter, helping seniors age gracefully at home. He does home maintenance and repair. But he's also been working on election integrity. And since November of 2020, so over 2 years now, he spent over 2,000 hours investigating and speaking on election corruption. He's part of a nationwide network of patriots concerned about election integrity. And he's going to be part of a series that we're starting here on the RingSide Politics program called the Censorship Chronicles, and today is going to be part one. Our guest is Dr. Randy Ross, who's also, by the way, been married for 42 years, has 3 married daughters, 4 grandsons, and we welcome him to the program. Dr. Randy, how you doing? Good morning.
Hey, Jeff. Good morning. I'm doing well. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for the work you've done, and thank you so much for being with us here on the program. So, you've got so many different experiences, so many different things that you've been doing in the corporate world and academia. What got you so interested in election integrity?
Yeah, that's a great question, Jeff. Like many of us, I watched the election returns on November 3rd, 2020, and about 10:40 at night, 5 states, swing states, major cities in those states stopped counting. And then the counts dragged on literally for days. And as a doctorally trained statistician, the chance of that happening is zero. And so I began to rant and rave to my dear wife about something's wrong. And she told me after a few days, you either need to shut up or do something. So to preserve my marriage, I started investigating what went on that night, not with the goal of changing the outcome of the election, but to understand how something like that could happen so we could prevent it in the future.
Yeah, it was very disturbing. I sort of felt disturbed the year before in Louisiana, where you had the governor's race in 2019, and throughout the night, Eddie Rispone was leading. Then all of a sudden, lo and behold, John Bel Edwards wins. On a much bigger scale, you had what happened nationally with Donald Trump, and we've had people for years ask questions about, are these, free and fair elections? I mean, do we have election integrity or not? Is there fraud going on? So tell us a little bit about some of the areas that you've been spending the past 2.5 years investigating, Doctor.
Yeah, we really started out, a team of us here in Louisiana from around the state, a team of researchers, investigators, looking into really 2 areas. One is the voter registration, and the other is the election system, which includes the voting machines, which everybody's familiar with, but also the scanners that scan the mail-in ballots, absentee ballots, and the databases that are in the servers that accumulate all of our votes and, where the reporting comes out. So we've taken a comprehensive look at both sides, voter registration and the election system, and we found quite disturbing things. And you're aware of some of this, dirty voter rolls. We've done some canvassing to check the accuracy of our rolls. And in Ascension Parish, we found evidence of up to 20% of the registered voters may be, in fact, ineligible. So that's just one example
Now,
of the
let's talk
type
about
of
that
work
if
that
we
we've
could,
done.
because
Hmm.
you had a team out there of great volunteers, and many
Hmm.
of them were affiliated with us here on WGSO. We had some friends that were part of your group out there doing the canvassing. And
Hmm.
why did you pick Ascension Parish? What was it about that parish
Uh,
that said,
well,
hey, we
we
want
had
to start here?
Yeah, we had 55 canvassers going door to door. They represented 14 parishes, and we were checking on two things. We didn't want to know anything about who they voted for. We simply wanted to verify that all of the people registered at the address actually lived there and confirm whether or not they, in fact, voted in the 2020 election. And so that's what we did. It took about we did it in one day. We canvassed 2,000 registered voters around the parish, and we picked Ascension Parish because it had been identified by one of the national experts, Captain Seth Keshel, who's a former military intelligence officer, as being a possible area of election fraud in Louisiana, one of the parishes, 9 parishes that
Oh.
he identified. So we used, statistical analysis to
Mm.
pick that parish.
And his worries were not unfounded, correct?
And that's correct. I mean, an example, we found a home that was empty, padlocked, that was full of like boxes, like a storage house being used for storage. We found 9 registered voters located at that house. Well, we didn't find anybody because no one was there. The next door neighbor said nobody's lived there in decades, and yet I believe 6 of those 9 people actually voted in the 2020 election.
It's just unbelievable. And then, of course, if any kind of effort like that was done in New Orleans, I can only imagine what would be uncovered, because I've contended now for quite a while that our voter registration rolls in New Orleans are out of balance and not accurate, because census numbers show, I mean, we've got roughly 300,000 people here. And then when you take out people that can't vote, and you get to an amazing number, over 90% of them are supposedly of the eligible voters are registered. And
Hmm.
that just can't be. I mean, that's
Right.
much higher than we see as the average across the country, which I believe, Dr. Russ, is closer to 65, 70% of
Yes,
eligible voters are registered.
that's
So
correct.
we got some funny business going on here as well. So that is a major issue that you're tapping into. And then, of course, the systems, as you say, I think there's a lot of suspicion about these election systems being problematic.
Yeah, and the two are related. You need fake registrations or dirty voter rolls to feed the corruption in the electronic systems. So without those fake or ineligible voter registrations, you can't feed the type of results that you want to manipulate inside
Mhm.
the databases and the equipment. So it's two sides of the same coin.
All right, hang on with us, because when we come back, I want to talk about another important issue, and that is the issue of censorship. Another segment here with our special guest, election integrity expert, Dr. Randy Russ, who is with us here on the hotline. And we're starting what we're calling here the Censorship Chronicles, and want to talk about censorship. Why should we focus on this, Doctor?
Yes, Jeff, that's a great question. And what Jeff Landry, in his suit against the Biden administration and also the Twitter files, are revealing and exposing uh, tons of information, emails, and other communications, depositions are being taken, which have exposed a vast nationwide conspiracy between the federal, state, and local governments and big tech and nonprofits to set up and operate a censorship enterprise. And the purpose of that censorship enterprise is to spy on, suppress and ultimately shut down primarily patriotic conservative voices, and on the other side to boost the government's approved speech. And every citizen should be concerned about this because the agencies, federal agencies that regulate electronic voting systems are at the center of this conspiracy. And I ask this question: if they're censoring our voices, if our government is censoring our voices, what about our votes?
Well, that's a very good question. So we know from the Twitter files what has been going on and the pressure that was placed on Twitter to censor conservatives on issues such as the election, on issues such as COVID. And my question is, well, what were they doing at YouTube? What was Google doing? What was Facebook doing? Instagram? Don't you think this was going on all across social media, Doctor?
Yes, it's going on across all platforms. And what's even more disturbing, and I'll just use Twitter, the former FBI senior legal counsel James Baker moved from the FBI and became the chief lawyer for Twitter. He was the vice counsel. So here we have 24, a dozen or more FBI agents working inside of Twitter, coordinating the censorship of American citizens. And so every citizen should be concerned about this.
Here's what A.G. Landry said, and I thought he was right on target. Government censorship is bipartisan. If they don't like you, they will censor you. No one is safe when the First Amendment is violated. I mean, the First Amendment is so important to our functioning system of government, so important to we the people being in charge here. Otherwise, we're subjects of an all-powerful government, and that is very dangerous. And when they were trying to suppress our free speech, that is something that we cannot allow. We have got to fight back against this. So I think that's why this issue is so important. So you talk about, Dr. Russ, the fact that this has been weaponized against Louisiana citizens. Mm-hmm. And you've got maybe some chilling stories to tell us about what's happened to you.
Sure. First off, the audience needs to know that I was a registered independent for 40 years of my life. I've never been politically involved. I assumed everything was okay. I was focused on my faith, my family, and helping individuals and businesses grow. And so I thought everything was okay. I became a Republican in 2019 because of the policies that were being pursued by President Trump, which I thought I agreed with them. And so I'm anything but a political hack or a political operative, and I reluctantly became involved in the election integrity movement. And so over the last 2 years, myself and others have been speaking around the state about election integrity, corruption in our election systems, and I began speaking about censorship in October. In New Orleans, actually. And then I spoke in November at a meeting in Lafayette. And then I was invited by a group in Houma of patriots in the Bayou Country. And the primary focus was on censorship with some of our other material on voter registration and election systems. And they had it live streamed on YouTube. And the next day, it was up for a little while on YouTube, and then it was censored. So
now, what do you mean? It was censored. It was taken
down. It was removed, and the title of that presentation was Randy Russ, Election Integrity, and the censorship notice that the group in Houma received was removed for intimidation and bullying.
Did you engage in any intimidation or bullying, Dr. Ross?
I'm 65 years old. I'm 5'8", a little overweight. I'm bald, and I'm a former professor. People who know me laugh when they hear that because I'm anything but that. And going forward in this series, everything that we put out, I'm going to challenge and encourage the listeners to go check it out and do your own research. We're going to point you to the documents from the Jeff Landry lawsuit, from the Twitter files, and some of our own original research and documents that we've discovered, which color between the lines here on just how this censorship enterprise operates. How does it work? Who's involved? And how are they spying on and shutting down citizens in Louisiana?
So, you posted it out there with the name Dr. Randy Russ. It was taken down, and then they redid it. And tell us what happened then.
Yes, so we put it on another channel, YouTube channel, and it was taken down almost immediately with my name and election integrity on it. So we then took it and broke that presentation into multiple parts, took my name off of it, and to my knowledge, it's still up on that channel. And I'm not at liberty, obviously, to disclose what channel that is on.
So the material was the same. The presentation was the same, not altered at all. The only thing that was different is that your name was removed.
That's correct. Which leads me to believe that either through an algorithm at YouTube or through a complaint ticket filed against me by someone by name, either my name is in an algorithm at YouTube or someone in the censorship enterprise turned my name in because they're spying on me and they saw this and they wanted it removed. And so we'll explain to your audience in the future weeks how that whole system works. And I'm sure many people listening right now have either been censored themselves on social media or friends and family have been censored.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we do want to get into that in future episodes. Let me just ask you this, and we have 2 minutes left or so, Dr. Russ. Do you have a heavy social media presence? I mean, are you all over Twitter and various other platforms?
I have zero social media presence. I joined Twitter in December of 2022, just now, in order to get access to the Twitter files and follow that. And so I am at Dr. Randy Russ on Twitter. But other than that, I have a dormant Facebook account for the home repair business. And I have zero social media presence. Quite frankly, I really don't want one. You know, I wanted to retire, lead a quiet life, work with my hands, taking care of people, and enjoying my family and my grandkids. And this is. But now,
now you're on a wanted list. I mean, you're being censored. I mean, that's sort of a badge of honor. That means you're doing something right. That they would want to censor what you're saying, and that you're been put on this list by the powers that be. And we can explore that later. But that means that you're doing something good, Doctor.
Right. Well, if what we were revealing in our presentations to thousands of people around the state over 2 years, if it wasn't true, then it would just disappear. People would think we were crazy and that, the average citizen who sees our presentation would just dismiss us as some kind of conspiracy theorist. But we keep getting invited to present our material. And so
it's a great presentation, and I think everyone that sees it would be very impressed by what you put together. I have to ask you this final question that we visited earlier with a president of the Slidell Republican Women's Club that has invited you to come to her club. Michelle Hurstish, she's doing it in violation of this edict issued by the president of the Louisiana, or chairwoman of the Louisiana Federation of Republican Women, telling the clubs that they're not to invite you or Brandon Trosclair, who's running for Secretary of State, to their clubs for any speeches. How do you feel about being targeted in that way?
You know, as a new member of the Republican Party, I've always tended to vote Republican, except for when I had to vote for Edwin Edwards against David Duke. So I've been generally a Republican voter, but I joined the party and contributed to the party in 2019 or 2020. So it is very disappointing to me that a official Republican group would seek to censor and shut down one of its members and basically say to these Republican women's groups, we don't trust you to choose the speakers that you want to come to your club. We're going to tell you who you can invite. And that's like 1950s.
Right.
Let's keep women in the kitchen kind of stuff. And so I was very disappointed that the Federation took that action.
Did they reach out to you to say, hey, we have concerns with this part of your presentation and let's talk about it? Did they communicate with you at all before issuing this order?
No one communicated with me. I believe I have no knowledge and believe that the author of the letter had never even seen our presentation. And so it's curious that she would do this censorship of myself and John Scanlon without giving us the opportunity to either view the presentation and discuss her concerns or reach out to us personally to discuss it. I mean, that's just common decency and courtesy.
Right,
would
exactly.
require that, and professionalism.
Yes. I have reached out to her to invite her on this program to give an accounting of why she made that decision and waiting to hear back from her. So I'll continue to invite her on and try to talk to her about, what she did and why. But I'm glad you brought up John Scanlon. He's someone also very important to this effort, working with you on it, and someone who's also invested a lot of his time in this effort as well, correct?
That's correct.
So we certainly want
to team member, and I just appreciate him so much.
Yeah, we certainly want to credit him as well. Well, Doctor, thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to be visiting again soon, and let me just again thank you for the work you're doing. This is vitally important for all of us here in Louisiana, and we're going to continue to talk about this in the days, weeks, and months ahead. Dr. Randy Russ, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Jeff. Have a great day.